Okay, well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining our webinar. It's the Office Manager's Hybrid Playbook, how to build systems and reduce chaos and improve results, even with fewer hands. If you have questions, you can enter them in the chat. We'll answer them when we can. The presentation is recorded. We'll share that afterwards. And it's our pleasure to welcome Christine Sison. She's the CEO of Swiss Monkey. She's a SMCDS business member, a longtime supporter and partner of our dental society. So welcome, Christine.
Hi, thanks, Jim. Hello, and happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I was telling Jim, this is our first webinar, at least for me, of the year. So I'm excited to be here with all of you. So I know this is a lunchtime webinar, so I will try to keep it kind of condensed so that if you do have patients coming in at 1, you're able to do any check-ins and just kind of have a moment to yourself before the second half of the day starts. So today we're going to focus on really how to run your dental practice using and building a remote model and integrating a remote model into your existing practice. So when I looked at the attendance today, it looks like there's kind of half office managers, half doctors. So I really want this to be a lively discussion. If you have questions and you know you might be leaving early, please just put them into the chat box there. Jim, I'm only looking at my slide, so I can't see it. So just feel free to stop me and then ask me the questions. I want this to be interactive. I can talk very fast and very long. So I want to make sure that you're coming out of here with everything that you need to really understand how to use technology, how to use and integrate a remote team member and maybe some tech and AI in 50 minutes or so. But please, let's make this interactive. If you have any questions, just go ahead and plug them in and Jim will let me know. So in terms of our objectives today, we'll talk a little bit high level, what's happening with staffing, how to use platforms like Swiss Monkey. Bias, I'm obviously coming in there with that perspective. So it's going to be a little bit about how the platform can help you. But the idea here is like, how to use people that are not inside of the office to really get the work done and unblock that capacity to get everything taken care of. How to use and apply fractional support and remote support, and then how to actually do this properly and well. Okay. Um, so again, I'm Christine Sison. Just really briefly, my background has been in healthcare for over 20 years. Went to school out there in the Bay Area, at Berkeley, and then went to school and did some work around health policy and management in the East Coast. I've been in, did some consulting with hospitals and clinics. I got into dentistry and founded Swiss Monkey about 10 years ago. I got into it because my husband is a dentist. He actually practices here in Sacramento. So I'm kind of sharing this with you because this company was built really from the pain points of within a private practice and my own experience running a dental practice. And boy, is it tough, and especially in California here. I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to use a remote team member because it is really challenging, I think, with just with what's happening with staffing, what's happening with labor, and especially in the Bay Area, it's difficult. And so I want to talk about some solutions in terms of how I think we can help. And then I'll talk about Swiss Monkey kind of overall, but essentially we are a talent marketplace of about 3,000 plus US based dental professionals that you can tap into and then actually manage remotely. So I'll kind of walk through kind of how that whole model works throughout the presentation. Okay, so let me talk about this real incident so we can kind of anchor the conversation. So I got this message. This is a few years ago now, but of course, as all good things happen, it happens Monday morning. You're about to start off the best week of your life. And then this poor doctor and his wife came into pretty much, I think, worst case scenario. I got this message from a consultant early in the morning, 8:20. Hi, Christine. Happy Monday. I have an office in Cameron Park. So you guys, that's actually a little rural community up about an hour from Sacramento. I think you've helped them in the past. They are in crisis mode. The entire staff quit last week and they are left with only one RDH. They need immediate help with front and back office. Can you help? So you can imagine this is huge situation. They come back and there was no transition plan. They come in, 5 letters of resignation on the desk, one clinical team member. They were booked that week with patients. So in this scenario, obviously this is unique, but essentially what we did is we kind of got a pulse of like what was happening. We were able to connect them to talent within the same day. We had them remote into the practice. We triaged the patients out to give us a little bit more time. Now, on Wednesday, this couple was actually leaving to Mexico. So it was like we had a very limited amount of time to kind of get this all going. But what is really exciting, I think, with when you're thinking about using kind of this hybrid resource is that you can take care of these kinds of challenges in a way that would be really difficult if you're like, hey, I only want an on-site team member. That's how I want them on my practice. If you're open to saying, hey, can we do the work well in other ways? Obviously, we can even help in these kind of scenarios where it's very difficult. Obviously, they're in a very rural area, super challenging to find staffing. But within a day, we're able to connect them to talent, find good people, access the software, move patients out, and give them, and I think it was really within 2 weeks, just give them the breathing room to hire somebody on site. And afterwards, they moved in probably 50 or 60% back of the responsibilities that we outsourced back to the on-site team. And then they did eventually end up selling that practice a couple of years later. But I wanted to share that because I mean, I get these calls every single week. I mean, variety of different things. People are going maternity leave. This is kind of obviously break the glass scenario, but I want to show you kind of how this model can really come to the rescue if you need it. And in the Bay Area, I mean, in dentistry, right? You get this sometimes all the time. Someone wants to speak to you on Friday, they're not coming back. On Monday, they want a raise, and if you don't give them the raise, they're looking for another job. And I have a lot of office managers here as well, right, where you're having to deal with really tough salary conversations. So again, I think this model is really exciting to help you manage some of those situations. So why now? Just really briefly, these stats are kind of vary a little bit, but essentially pretty much the same from last year. More jobs available than there are people available to work. So 2 to 3 times more jobs. Obviously, in hygiene, that stat might actually be higher. No surprise, almost 1 of 3 doctors are looking for admin staff, as reported by the ADA, finding it extremely difficult to find people. And not having enough people on the team absolutely contributes to your ability not to produce to your practice's potential. And they found that it's a 11% reduction in practice capacity by just not having enough people. So for an average $1 million practice, you're losing $100,000 just by not being staffed. And so there's a real need and a real business case here around how do you access talent to get the work done? How do you unblock that flow? And then you have kind of on this other end, on from the talent perspective, this new generation. This is 1981 and younger. And this is like this generation that wants to work from home, right? They want to have a couple of days. They don't want to traditionally have a W-2 relationship. They want to work from, the comfort of their own home. They want to work for multiple people. They want to get paid what they want to get paid. They're coming up in a digital environment. And so the playbook that was sold 15 years ago around how to run a dental practice, full-time individuals, they're coming into the office, that is just not the fabric of the talent these days. I mean, that baby boomer generation is now transitioned out. Your biggest generation right now is the Gen Z, is that 1981 and younger, and they have a very different expectation as to what they want from work. And so if any of you are actually doing any recruiting, I think you're probably nodding your head like, yeah, I'm seeing this, right? Like I have people that are coming in asking for pay raises 3 to 6 months into a job. That was really unheard of before in terms of like, hey, usually you wait at least a year. That's just again, that's not you. I'm seeing this all across that they have a different expectation in terms of their relationship with their employer, how much they're going to get paid, when they want to work, etc. And again, it creates a different way of thinking about how to operate a dental practice. And so the real question is like, so what does that mean for you, right? So you're on this call. Okay, can you just give us some solutions? So let's focus on kind of what this remote model kind of works like. So traditionally on site, most of you are probably, if you haven't worked with any kind of remote team member before, everything is done on site for the traditional dental practice. You're checking in, all the scheduling, all the phone calls, obviously all the treatment presentation is done on site, clinical aspects, accounts receivable, hygiene, following up with patients, all of that, we kind of keep that on site. And then you have, I would venture to guess, most of us have some offsite, kind of a thin layer where your accountant is not on site, your coach, your rep, your legal team. So you're kind of already doing a little bit of this kind of hybrid model. Maybe you're not thinking about it that way. So what I want to kind of open our mind to is what if you expanded that into the operational side, saying, hey, if it's not patient facing, can it be done offsite? And the answer is yes. It doesn't mean that it should. That's not, I think that's sometimes I do get people that get really excited. And there are some doctors actually that are like, they have basically just the very bare bones on site. Everything done is done off site. I would say 80% of our clients, it's really kind of a balance and it's very recursive in terms of like what the on-site capacity looks like. And depending on what the on-site capacity, what that team's skill set looks like, they build the off-site team and they tap into talent just to complement that, right? So again, most of our practices end up doing some combination of this. Billing, accounts receivable, those types of things that are especially not patient facing, those tend to be kind of the first things that are pulled out, following up with insurance, because those things anyone knows take a lot of time. They're super important. Calling Delta Dental or whatever your favorite insurance company is, 45 minutes of listening to that music. It needs to be done. It needs to be done well. And you need to kind of have focused time. And I'm telling you, anyone here that's done that and you're waiting for a breakdown or you've been on hold for 45 minutes, you're not hanging the phone up because someone's coming into the door. It's just like you spent all that time there, you're going to wait on the phone. But when you're running a practice, you got to balance. If there just isn't enough people, how do you kind of say, hey, this is important work, but does it have to be done on site? And if I'm paying my team a salary, wages, benefits, all of that. Do you really want to have them do those things that might be able to be done by a specialist, possibly even for less expensive in a short amount of time? Pull that off site and have your team really focus on getting the things that have to be done on site, focusing on that patient experience. Obviously, as you know, patients are spending more out of pocket. They're looking for practices that provide that really great experience, right? Like they're giving you their dollar vote. And so as you're running your practice and you're thinking about building your team, for me at least, like if I'm going to pay you and you're going to be kind of all, and I'm going to have to do all of the W-2 pieces, I want you focusing on things that are revenue generating and providing a really optimal patient experience. And the way that we've kind of run my practice is that like if it's not really any of those, I've actually looked at like we have anywhere between 2 to 4 people at any given time doing all of these other things that are really important. I just don't need to, I want my team really focused on the patients in the office. They're pretty busy. There's just a lot of things happening. And it's just anyone that I know we have people here that's been in the front office, it's really hard. If it's hard to be following up with your unscheduled treatment and your hygiene, and then you have a new patient coming in, you should be doing the new patient tour. It's difficult to kind of shift context, and then all of a sudden the doctor's coming out with another. So the more that you can give your team just the space and the just a little bit of time to focus in on what you need them to focus on, a couple of things in the office, really those patients, I think you're even going to feel the energy of your practice change. So again, it depends on what's happening with your practice, your team, where your skill set is. But those are all the things that we've seen kind of been done offsite. Now, during COVID, I have my startups, some of my specialty offices. I do have a lot of, not a lot, but a lot of some of my new grads are saying, hey, they really want a concierge model where it's like, um, and I apologize if that's me. Let me turn that off. Let me see if I can close that. Apologize, guys. View. Yeah, so again, we have some of our younger doctors there that are really building these practices that are much like concierge, where it's like someone that's in the front. All they're doing is saying, "Hey, Jim, welcome to the office. We're so excited to see you." They're offering tea, and everything done is done offsite. The doctor doesn't want to hear the phone ring. So you can be that extreme. What's kind of fun about, at least with us, when you're playing with this model is you're not stuck, right? You can say, hey, I just want to try this. I just need someone for 5 hours a week to follow up with my unscheduled treatment for 3 months, right? And my benefits have renewed. I don't have time. We're like, I'm having for someone right now. We're updating our credentialing and our fee schedule. My team just doesn't have time to do it. It has to get done. We haven't done it in a few years, and I just need a specialist to take care of that. So, what's kind of really exciting about this is that you're looking at um, changing the way that you are building your team. So traditionally, you've got like, I'm going to hire Jim and it's going to be 32 to 40 hours. You're going to be paying him between X amount and this amount, benefits, all of these things. And then he's going to be commuting to and from work, however long that is in the Bay Area. And got to make sure that you have all the training and whatnot. And that's kind of traditionally kind of how it works. And you want some of your team on site. I'm not a big advocate of like pulling everything off site. That's just not how I want to do. But again, every practice is a little bit different. You can now think about having, hey, there's, 40% of your team is on site, kind of the traditional employee-employer relationship. And maybe there's anywhere between, I don't know, I think on average 15 to 30% of my offices have kind of the task for hire, like the work to be done. They're 1099s, right? So these are, it can be anywhere from role based. Hey, I'm looking for someone to do all of my billing, my insurance verifications, those things again that are really important, but don't have to be done on site. It's I think what used to happen is you took someone that was like a more junior person, then you would graduate them into now doing billing and all of those things. You put them into an office and they would never see patients. If you are limited in team members in the front, the last thing you want is your most expensive person doing billing and posting. That just is that's how we used to do it. I just don't think that's a day. Now you can get billing, you can get your accounts receivable and your whole entire revenue cycle is what we call that, done off site for a fraction of the price. And especially in California, um, you want to think about, you know, because with remote team members, you have access for us, like majority of our team members are US based. So outside of California, typically wages are 20 to 40% lower. And I have some of my practices that are looking overseas. They're global, and that's 50 to 60% lower. And so as you are thinking about your P&L and trying to stay within your 30%, ideally lower if you can, of your staffing costs, those are real things to consider. And if you're an office manager on this call, you want to be aligned with your doctor there. It's like, um, ideally, if you're saying, hey, yes, I can hire someone in the Bay Area, it would cost us $28 plus the benefits, total $35. And I could say, hey, Jim, what if I were to get you the same person to do billing and posting and get them some other part of the country, $23 an hour, and you're not gonna even need them for 40 hours, you need them for 20 hours, and there's no contract. Like if you for some reason like, hey, 3 months later, this is good, we're gonna pull it back in house. How exciting is that, right? And so if you think about what that could look like in terms of savings, you want to align and say, hey, team, guess what? We can actually outsource this role. We're going to use this other person. They're fantastic. You want to make sure that your team knows about them. You can have your patients know about this offsite team member, and then take that extra money that you're saving and maybe you distribute that as a bonus. So it's certainly one of the things that sometimes a lot of our team members get nervous about is like, oh my gosh, is this person going to take my job? And I always say there's enough work for everyone to do in the front office. And we want to be able to I think it's if we can align those incentives, that's great, right? So if, unscheduled treatment is a really big thing. A lot of my offices in hygiene as well. We always want to follow up with them. Do we? Probably not as well as we want to. And I really want that on-site team member to do that. But sometimes if you don't have the time, what if I were to get you someone that really understood how to do specialty or like really comprehensive cases, that knew how to do treatment planning, knew how to do patient financing, that was better than possibly someone that has only been in dentistry for 1 to 2 years. So I kind of I'm dripping all of these different scenarios because I want you to kind of get the context of how you can use this model because it can be very exciting if you understand really how you can put all of these chess pieces together to create your ideal model. And again, you're not stuck to it, right? So again, with these kind of task for hire, work for hire, you can say, hey, like, end of the year, last year, what we did is we had someone that was their only job was to focus on unscheduled treatment and remaining benefits and people that were approved for financing. That's it. I did it for 20 hours for 2 months. That was their only job because I know end of the year is coming up. We had people that were approved for financing and they're not on our books. But my team was like, end of the year is crazy. Beginning of the year is crazy. And we're looking for ways to optimize our production. And sometimes, again, your on-site team is busy. It's just, I think it's sometimes, you know, uh, a challenge for them to do multiple things at once. If you can say, hey, let's just have this done consistently by someone off-site, that can definitely be a plus for the office. All right, I'm going to pause real quick. Jim, I don't see any. Let me know if there's any questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on going. Okay, so hopefully some of you are like, oh, this is interesting. Like, well, tell me more. How do I begin? So typically when they come to us, Usually there's not gonna say there's a fire, but there's a lot of inertia in the dental office. Like most of the time, unless you're optimizing your practice, which ideally that's where you kind of are. Most of the time, people come to us and they're like, "We have a need. Someone's leaving. I just checked my books, and oh my God, we have $300,000 of accounts receivable. Insurance isn't getting verified properly, or like our patient portions are being miscalculated. Can I get someone to help with that?" So typically, the way that I recommend that you kind of look at something like this is identify what your gaps are, right? Like, how do you want your practice to run? What are your specific goals? Do you have a production number you want to hit? How would you measure success? And even one of an agnostic way to go about this is saying, hey, use a financial metric. Hey guys, we want to go from $150,000 to $220,000 by the end of the year. How do we get there? Right? And if your team, and if you're an office manager or on here, if your team could say, hey, guess what, Dr. Jim, we can do this. All we have to do is XYZ. We move a couple of things around and you don't have to add any overhead. That's fantastic. Right? Like if you can get from goal A to goal B without adding any overhead with the same team and just it's just more about organizing the resources you have, that's great. Typically what ends up happening is that they're like, Dr. Jim, I would love to do that, but guess what? I can't follow up with that. I'm too busy on the phone. The phone's going crazy. I don't have time to follow up. This is happening because there's all these claims and it's taking me 45 minutes for each claim to do this. And so you'll start to get an inventory of what's blocking your team. And that's where you can say, hey guys, what if I can get you an assistant? Right? Like this, again, it's not meant to replace your on-site team. We want to complement them. You want to give them the space to be able to get and to think about how to grow your practice, especially if you have an office manager. That's, really, my office managers are doing stuff where they're not really managing. They're so busy kind of on the tactical level, they don't have the space and time to help the doctors really think about it. And that's happened for my own office too. It's just, it gets really busy. And so if you can help them organize the team better, I think that's a great way to start. So identify what your gaps are, what does success look like. And again, it doesn't have to be a whole, start off small, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a month, something like that, that you can say, hey, let's just test this because the workflows are going to have to change. And so you don't want to, I mean, unless you're very aggressive, you're like, you know what? Goodbye. I just want to start over and you want to do that. Sometimes that needs to happen. So start small. You can always dial up, right? Then you need to lay down the infrastructure. I'll go in the next slide a little bit how my some of my offices who are just doing this first time. I just want to make sure, like, again, you're working with an offsite team member. Sometimes you go on Facebook. Oh my gosh, I love, Judy. She's fantastic. I got her on Facebook or Indeed, and you just use your cell phone number and her Gmail address. You just want to make sure like you're doing this properly, not necessarily scary, but at least with us, like we have all of that infrastructure taking place. You have your NDAs, you got the HIPAA courses are taken care of. You've done your background checks, your identity verification, all your incident reportings are in place. So there's a little bit of the tech and infrastructure that you want to just have in line, and that you want to have instant message that is HIPAA compliant. You really don't want to be texting patient information back on the cell. I know no one has done that before, but you just want to make sure that you're safe. You're not creating exposure where you don't need to. So having the tech down, then you connect to talent. For us, we have a whole marketplace where you can like tell them what you want and you can easily select and choose. Uh, what's really cool about remote work is we have a complete reversal of what's happening with on-site, where it's like for every job you get probably 50 to 60 candidates. It is a total game changer for anyone running an office, which makes connecting to talent really same day. Like I have not had an office within our platform at least where it's like I post a position and assuming you're not trying to get someone for like $3 an hour, and sometimes it happens, people apply very quickly. You get access to talent very fast. Whereas if you think about it with on-site, you got to really be within, 30 to 40 miles of your office, ideally closer. And in the Bay Area with traffic, it can take a long time. So you're looking with on-site, they should know dentistry. They got to be within a certain geographic range. They have to, be skilled, et cetera. And also your wage range. Obviously, it's a little bit more costly to live in the Bay Area. So connecting to talent kind of changes when you're going remote because you have no geographic boundaries, right? Like I have offices in Hawaii, they're in Maui. They're accessing talent just as fast as people that are in high populated areas, which is really great for a dental practice, especially in California. And again, they're also not employees. So they're going to be 1099s. So for all of us that are just we're so lucky to be here, obviously onboarding, offboarding, we have a lot of, just a lot of the hoops that we need to do to take care of our employees, the 6 hour, 10-minute rule, all of that. With at least for us and most outsourcing companies, you don't really have to, they're usually an expense item, right? It's a 1099, it's easy, it's quick. So it's a lot less of a circus, if you will, to kind of handle that. And if and I know some of the office managers that you love handling all of the payroll and all the employee stuff. What's great is if you use a remote team member tip, if you structure it properly and you go through all of those pieces, you have them as a 1099. You have to make sure that they have certain disclosures, and all of that, so you don't, you don't misclassify them. And again, we kind of take care of all of that from our technology platform. But again, if you're going to do this on your own, and that's okay. Like you just want to make sure you kind of just check all of those compliance pieces off. So connect to talent, make sure that they're doing everything properly. They're connecting into your PMS. You give them the right security, access, etc. And don't just leave them alone. So if you're going to do this, I mean, just make sure like, hey, you still have to orient them. Yes, most of them are already trained. For remote work, I don't recommend that you get someone that has not done dental. You really want to get someone with at least a few years of dental experience, unless you're a big enterprise client and you have someone that has the time to train. I really, really advise against it. It's really hard to train dentistry over, just even if you feel like you have the time, there's just a lot of nuances where if you're a private practice, there's so much to work on. And with talent here, and there's so many people with great experience, I would just say, just set yourself up for success. Don't start with someone that knows what they're doing, that's been in dentistry before. Ask them, hey, if you were to start tomorrow, how would you go? And how would you get going? That's kind of where if you've never done this before, like really again, set yourself up for success. Connect to talent that's ideally worked remote before, that's been in dentistry before, and ideally has worked with your software before. If you're using a software that's a little bit newer, just it's going to be a little different. They're more similar than different, but ideally you have someone that knows your software. And you want to do some quality assurance back and forth. So you don't, again, even though they know what they're doing, every office is a little bit different. You just want to have just regular meetings, because sometimes when they're offsite, they're not as vocal as they should be around what they need. And so you want to give that safe space for them to make sure that you're checking in, they're checking in. And also for us, we actually at the end of their shift, they have to submit a productivity report. If you're not using the platform through us, I recommend that you kind of put that at the beginning, just so that you're not like, oh my gosh, I paid Jim like, $1,000 this month. What the heck did he do? Just at the beginning, just saying, hey, at the end of every shift, please submit what you did. Right. Again, with us, when they clock in, we actually take screenshots of their monitor. When they clock out, in order to get paid, they actually have to submit kind of an overview of what they did. And they have to submit their KPIs, how many calls they made, how many claims they submitted, hygiene calls, appointments stayed, et cetera, depending on their scope of work that they're doing for them. So for us, the platform is all kind of all encompassing. And again, if you're not using us, that's something I highly recommend. It's just nice ways at the end of the day, even if you're not looking at it, you feel good about what you're paying for. Because the last thing I want you to do is add somebody and then you're just like not sure what you're getting. So those are kind of little gems that we've learned over the years. Okay. Um, so how do practices communicate with offsite team members? Again, if you're not going to use us, typically they're using things that are not really kind of HIPAA line. You want to just make sure your data is safe, especially if you're going to use someone overseas. Those aren't bad. I just want to make sure, like, if you're doing that you have all those compliant pieces that you're thinking about. And for us, we spent a lot of time kind of making sure that we are doing those things properly. So we had them sign an NDA, take some HIPAA courses, that they know how to handle data, that they're not like working in Starbucks, calling your hygiene patients. They have a way to be able to communicate to you if something did happen so that you can address it quickly. Non-disclosure agreements, etc. So those are just things that are not necessarily scary, but you gotta just make sure that you're gonna take care of that if you're not gonna use the platform, so that you can do this in a way that makes you feel good, right? Like, it's rare, and I actually think it's less scary when you have someone offsite doing it, because you actually can block off remote access quickly. They should have their own logins. If you think about it on site, like, you have really no idea what they're doing. Like, you're kind of there and they can do a bunch of different things that are actually less, that you can monitor in a less aggressive fashion. So just some of the pieces here in terms of the infrastructure that we put in place. Okay, so how do you use it? So It just depends on why you're on this meeting today. And I'm so grateful for you to spend your lunch with me. So it depends. Sometimes we get calls or like, look, someone didn't show up today, or hey, we have an issue. Someone's going in on maternity leave, or whatever it is. They're taking their notice and they're going to be leaving next week. So there's some kind of like emergency support. Happens for us probably 30% of the time. Typically, like same day stuff, it happens, and so we can obviously support there. Then there are other kind of ways that you can use it. Hey, I want to grow my schedule, right? And that doesn't necessarily need to be full time. Hygiene follow up, unscheduled treatment follow up, patients that have been approved for financing. Um, Ideally, if if your on-site team can do that, because they're the ones that know your patients, you should have your on-site team do that and just get and take away things that are blocking them from contacting your patients because they know your practice. They know, you don't if between like someone on-site and off-site, I would choose someone on-site. But if for some reason you have someone that's like they're great, but they're not really comfortable with following up with patients, they don't know how to really present a really high comprehensive treatment plan, et cetera. And you can maybe look for someone to complement them. Maybe they're working in synergy together. Those are great ways to kind of look at that in terms of optimizing your production because it's not always about adding more patients, right? Like I think I just saw the stats, like 60% of your patients just aren't even receiving the care that you've diagnosed for them. So even if you were to go back and say, like, just let's not even think about getting new patients. Let's look at the patients that are already in here and let's just start to call them. And I'll tell you, in the age of AI right now, and everyone is getting automated and all of that, which is great, you should absolutely, if you're using a patient communication software, which I hope all of you are, have your office manager or somebody, or you can contact with one of us. Just make sure like you're doing all the things properly. Like you have online scheduling, you're doing like all the hygiene reminders, all of those things are taken in place because you can automate a lot of those pieces. Absolutely. And that should increase the effectiveness of the human that's doing the work. But I'll tell you, I think a lot of patients are really appreciating the fact that like their doctor is actually having someone call, right? So even if they're not picking up the phone, which I know a lot of people don't pick up the phone, but calling, leaving a message, text messaging, I think that we're kind of coming back. It's kind of strange to be able to say, hey, let's add that human authenticity to the effectiveness and efficiency of tech. So, and then cash flow pressure. Um, I mean, we had a practice a couple years ago that had $500,000 of accounts receivable. It happens. I mean, I don't know how that happens like that. That's a lot, but they took two full-time people. They were able to get that back, and then get accounts receivable. Takes usually a 2 month cycle, right? Because you get it out, you get the money, and then typically, as long as it's not an ongoing thing where you're like not collecting the front because now it's a front office issue, and you're just trying to catch up, then you can get someone that's like, hey, this is a contract position, special projects. I bought this practice, or hey, I didn't even realize we had, 100,000 that needed to follow up with. It's going to be for a month. So those are things where it's like it's more contract special basis. Um, if you have an AR issue, you just want to make sure like you're not like every time you bring it down, it continues to grow because it could be a patient collection issue or something on the front end. And then things happen, not life happens, but like obviously they're just stuff where someone's getting surgery, they're going on vacation, maternity coverage, sick leave coverage, those types of like temp. It's really hard to have someone leave their full-time job for 3 months, right? Like I don't think, I mean, anyone who's had an hygiene tried to cover for maternity coverage for hygiene is, that's how difficult that is, especially for the front office. You can actually, that's a lot easier to handle with remote team members as long as you're okay with, again, having someone that's not on site. So those are kind of some of the common use case scenarios. And more aggressively, people that are like, hey, I want to have an completely off-site team. So you can be extremely aggressive here. And you might just say, you can even be on the very kind of, again, uh, more conservative part of the spectrum, which is like, hey, I just need 5 hours on Saturdays. I have an office in the Bay Area where they're piloting Saturdays, and they just want someone on Saturdays to be available for phone calls because they're piloting kind of emergency care. So again, a tool in your back pocket. Okay. Um, how do you actually do this? So for Swiss Monkey, there's different ways that you can kind of build this hybrid team. So I'll kind of just talk. So at Swiss Monkey, we have this network of individuals, and you can essentially have one control panel managing these multiple individuals. They can do different things. You can have one person handling phones, one person that does billing and insurance verifications. You really have the ability to customize that individual the way that you want. For us, it's a one-to-one model. So if I'm hiring Jim from 8 to 12, Jim is only working on my office. It's a different model because they clock in, they're getting screenshots. Um, I I just found that for private practice, at least, like having one person work on multiple offices was just not the quality just wasn't there, and it was really tough because for that one person they're trying to answer phones and schedule in a really high quality way, and they're going between EagleSoft, Fuse, Dental, etc., or Dentrix, and it's was challenging. So for us, the way that we've chosen to kind of model our remote kind of platform is that it's a one-to-one model. If you select one person, they're only allowed to bill for you and you're on your office at one time. So it can feel very much like an extension of your office. And I think that also that they get a higher quality of experience. I think that if you're working from home, you don't want to necessarily have a transactional relationship with your office. People want to have something that they're really proud of. And I think that people love the ability to really focus in on one office. It's a privilege to be able to work with you. So I really want our professionals that work with you to really have that dedicated time and not feel like they have to memorize three different insurances and services and scheduling protocols, et cetera. Now you can that's obviously one way. And again, I'm coming it from my own bias perspective. There are some other if you decide that, hey, I want to have multiple vendors, one that does hygiene, one that does billing, et cetera. That's okay too. It just like, again, this is the concept is around like remote and kind of this hybrid model. Just know that like there are different ways. Other companies bill by percentages. Some are flat fees, some are hourly. You want to be careful about the 1099s. And so it's just kind of the way that you want to structure that. I tend to like simplicity because I feel like there's so much going on. But again, kind of different ways that you can structure kind of a hybrid team. Okay. So I will just kind of do my little plug here. So how Swiss Monkey works, and I'm happy to go through this. We make it really simple. Our team has run dental practices before. I think it's nice to be able to understand like what you guys are going through. It's challenging to be able to run a practice, and I want to make sure that you have a team that has been in the shoes that you are all in today. So for us, you obviously can give us a call, schedule a 30-minute consultation, or you can go onto our website and we will walk you through every step of the way. It's really important that for us, you feel really good about the partner that you're working with. Again, we feel it's a real privilege to be able to be on your team. You have a lot of different options, and this is your business. And if you're an office manager, boy, like what a privilege to be able to run that office, right? Like you've got this amazing asset. It's a multi-million-dollar asset, and so to be able to be part of that, I think is a real privilege for us. So we really want to make sure that we're there every step of the way. So we've really broken it down. You post what you need, you give the rules. As soon as you post it, it goes out to our network. Again, usually I see same day applications. For us, the way that our model works is you have a flat fee. It's a base access plan fee. It's like $50 a month for the year. You can do a monthly. It's like 149. Again, it's really meant to allow us to be able to give you access to that network, and then you only pay for the hours that you use. So for us, it's that access plan, and then we charge between 17 to 13.5% of the hourly rate. So again, you decide the hourly rate for us. So in our platform, you select the professional, you select the hourly rates, you select the hours. If you're using a different model, you might not have that flexibility, and that's, depends again on you. On our platform, you are setting that scope of work. So you're selecting your professional. So if you're on our platform and you're putting in your hourly rate, I would recommend that you create a diverse range. So 15 to 30, because again, you're not going to get everyone from California. You're going to get people that are like, oh my gosh, I would do that job for $22, right? So again, office manager is fantastic way for you to be able to like, hey, how do you actually create margin there for your doctors? Because now you can get the work done by using possibly less expensive labor, but also maybe they don't need as much time as a full-time person. Maybe you need that job to only be done, and you can get it done in a very specialized way, 10 to 15 hours. For us, our doctors typically, I think our average rate is $23 an hour, which is pretty good as a pure expense, no employee benefits, anything like that. And they're usually about 20 hours a week for an average private practice. That's for our platform. And then you go live. So for us, we take care of all the non-disclosure agreements. You can have background checks on there, um, all the data handling and HIPAA pieces are all taken care of. So you don't necessarily need to worry about that. You can absolutely complement them. If you're like, hey, we have actually more stringent non-disclosures, we want them to take our own HIPAA courses. Absolutely. You can certainly layer on your own very specific ways of how you run your practice, the verbiage, etc. Again, what's really cool is that because it's a one-to-one model, these professionals, they can certainly say if there's a specific way that you answer the phones, the way that you schedule, it's a great model for you able to have that customization. In other platforms, it can be really difficult because sometimes they just assign you a person, and again, it could be just challenging. So that's how Swiss Monkey works. I'm happy to be able to share that, answer any questions that you have afterwards if you have any. Okay, good. And so this is my scheduling link. It's actually to our team, 15 to 30 minutes if you have any questions. Um, my email, my cell phone number is on there. I prefer text message just because I get a ton of emails. But again, I'm available. I'm just, a couple of hours from you guys. So if you have any questions, please feel free to call or text me. But I left it a little bit early today because I want to make sure, like, if there's any questions or maybe give you a couple of minutes back to be able to enjoy some lunch and kind of mentally reorient for the rest of the afternoon, I want to do so. So thank you, everyone. And let me pause there and see if there's any questions.